It started as an ordinary evening, the kind where the outside world felt distant, and the warmth of home wrapped around us like a protective cocoon. Claire was in the kitchen, humming softly while preparing dinner, and Emily sat cross-legged on the living room floor, completely absorbed in her drawing. I was at the dining table, absent-mindedly scrolling through my phone, still partially caught up in the exhaustion of the day. Surgery had been long, demanding, intricate, but now I was home, safe. Or so I thought. "Daddy?" Emily's small voice broke through the soft murmur of the television. I looked up. "Yeah, sweetheart." She had stopped drawing, her crayon hovering just above the paper, her eyes locked on the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. "There's a man outside." A subtle tension crept into my chest. I set my phone down. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Where?" She didn't take her eyes off the door as she pointed. Her small finger was steady, unwavering. I followed her gaze, expecting to see nothing. The porch light cast a dim glow over the yard, stretching long shadows across the grass and up against the old wooden fence at the back. I didn't see anyone. "Are you sure?" I asked, rising from my seat. Emily nodded. "He was there, but when I looked again, he was gone." Claire stepped in from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. "What's going on?" "Emily thought she saw someone outside," I said, keeping my tone calm, steady. Claire frowned as she glanced toward the door. She studied the yard for a moment before shaking her head. "Sweetheart, there's nothing there. Maybe it was just a shadow or your own reflection in the glass." Emily didn't argue, but she also didn't look convinced. Her fingers curled a little tighter around the crayon, a small, almost imperceptible movement that sent an uneasy ripple through me. "I'll check the cameras," I murmured, making my way toward the small office where we kept the security monitor. The screen flickered to life, illuminating the darkened room with its grainy feed from different angles around the house, the front porch, the driveway, the side gate, the backyard. One by one, I cycled through them, my eyes scanning every frame. Everything looked still, quiet, normal. But then just as I flipped back to the backyard camera, something shifted at the edge of the screen. A figure, standing by the fence. He was wearing a dark hoodie, his face completely hidden behind a mask. Not a ski mask, not something tactical, just a plain, featureless white mask with two empty holes where his eyes should have been. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, facing the house. A slow, creeping chill spread through me. I leaned in, my eyes locked on the screen. And then he was gone. I quickly rewound the footage and played it back. There he was, standing still, staring directly at the house for a solid 5 seconds. But in the next frame, he had vanished. No movement, no sign of where he had gone. Just gone. "Mark." Claire's voice cut through my concentration, making me flinch. I turned toward her, realizing I had been holding my breath. "There was someone out there," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "Right by the fence." "I saw him." Her expression tightened as she stepped closer to the monitor. "I don't see anything." I rewound the footage. "Look," I played it again, but this time there was nothing. No masked figure, no trace of movement. Just the empty backyard, silent and undisturbed. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. I had just seen him. Emily had seen something too. Was I losing it? No. I knew what I had seen. Exhaling slowly, I ran a hand over my face, pressing my fingers against my temples. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or a glitch in the feed. Claire touched my arm gently. Her voice was softer now. "You're exhausted, Mark. You've been working too hard. Come eat." I hesitated, but finally nodded. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was just my tired brain playing tricks on me. But as we walked back to the dining room, I couldn't shake the feeling, an uneasy weight pressing down on my chest. This wasn't over. The house was engulfed in darkness. For a moment, the only sound was my own breathing, ragged, uneven. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the distant ticking of the wall clock, gone. Everything was swallowed by the heavy silence, except for the pounding of my heartbeat and the quiet, deliberate breaths of my daughter standing at the top of the stairs. "Daddy?" Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. Too soft, too uncertain. I turned my head slightly, just enough to make out her small figure in the faint glow filtering in through the windows. "Stay right there, sweetheart. Don't move." Outside, the masked man remained motionless. The weak streetlight barely caught the edge of his mask, casting him as nothing more than a shadowed figure against the glass. But something about his stance had changed, rigid, waiting, as if he knew something I didn't. Then a knock. Not frantic, not hurried, just slow, deliberate, almost mocking. My grip on the bat tightened, my palms damp with sweat. The air in the room felt heavy, thick with something I couldn't name. Every instinct screamed at me to move, to do something, but I couldn't. My body was locked in place. And then, the worst sound imaginable. The front door. A single, slow creak. Someone was inside. My stomach twisted. My eyes darted through the darkness, trying to adjust, trying to see past the heavy shadows stretching across the walls and furniture. Anything could be hiding there. "Claire," I forced out in a hushed whisper, barely daring to move. "Claire, wake up." The silence upstairs was suffocating. I couldn't hear her, couldn't tell if she was awake, if she had heard me. My pulse thundered in my ears as I took a cautious step back, instinctively positioning myself between Emily and the unseen presence in our home. Then, a creak. Not from the stairs, from the hallway, somewhere near the kitchen. I wasn't alone. I tightened my hold on the bat, forcing my breath to slow, to steady. My eyes flicked toward the security monitor on the desk, a black screen. The power was out. No cameras. No evidence. Just silence and the racing thoughts in my head. Another creak. Closer. Whoever was in the house wasn't running. They weren't searching for valuables or fumbling through drawers. They were moving slowly, purposefully. And then, a whisper. Low, faint, just a few words. But they sent a wave of ice through my veins. "She's awake," Emily whimpered softly. I turned, instinctively stepping toward her, but before I could reach her, another sound stopped me. The sliding door. The masked figure outside had placed a hand against the glass, pressing his palm against it with a slow, deliberate motion. Then, he tilted his head slightly, as if listening, as if he had heard the whisper too. A cold, suffocating dread gripped my chest. The front door, the hallway, the backyard. We were surrounded, and they hadn't come to steal. They had come for something else. For Emily. A surge of adrenaline crashed through me. I tightened my hold on the bat, my mind racing through possibilities. Escape routes. Anything but the panic clawing at my chest threatened to drown out rational thought. I could hear Claire stirring upstairs now, the faint sounds of movement. She must have sensed something was wrong. I needed to reach her, but I couldn't leave Emily, not even for a second. Then, the creaking stopped. Silence. The silence that followed was not the kind that offered comfort. It was heavy, suffocating, pressing in from all sides like an invisible force tightening the air. My pulse pounded in my ears, tightening my grip on the bat as I struggled to hear past my own breathing. Then, a soft, deliberate click from the kitchen, the unmistakable sound of a drawer being opened, the faint clink of metal hitting metal. A chill ran through my body. Knives. My breathing quickened now. Emily stood frozen at the top of the stairs, her small fingers curled around the railing. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Dad." I put a finger to my lips, silently urging her to be quiet. One wrong move, one sound, and we would lose what small advantage we had. I took a cautious step forward, standing at the base of the stairs. If I could just get her to Claire. Another sound. The refrigerator door swung open, the rubber seal peeling off with a soft snap. Whoever was in my kitchen was in no hurry. He wasn't searching frantically. He wasn't rummaging through drawers or breaking things. He was moving with purpose, settling in, making himself at home. And that terrified me more than anything else. Outside, the masked man remained where he was, his palm still pressed against the sliding glass door. He hadn't moved, hadn't tried to get in. Instead, his head was tilted slightly, like he was listening, like he knew something I didn't. I had a few seconds, maybe less. Moving quickly, I grabbed Emily and lifted her into my arms as she buried her face in my shoulder. I turned and climbed the stairs as quickly and as quietly as I could. Each step seemed like an eternity. Claire was up there. Security was up there. Or so I thought. Because the moment I reached the landing, I saw it. The bedroom door, slightly ajar. Claire's voice, muffled. And just beyond the frame, a second mask. Waiting, my breath caught. I could barely process what I was seeing. Claire was there, had to be there, but the figure standing in the doorway wasn't her. I held Emily tighter, my mind racing. If I ran in, I'd be walking straight into a trap. If I turned and ran, I'd leave Claire behind. A slow inhale came from the darkened room. Measured, intentional. Then, a shift in the shadows. A step forward. Just enough for the dim light to catch the faint glint of something metallic. I barely had time to react before Claire's voice broke the silence. "Mark?" The figure jerked its head at her, and in that split second, I moved. Turning sharply, I ran into the nearest room, the bathroom. I pushed the door shut behind us, turning the lock just as something heavy crashed through the other side. Emily trembled in my arms. "Dad, Dad." I gently pressed a hand to the back of her head, whispering against her hair. "Shh, honey, we're okay." But I wasn't sure I believed it. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear beyond the pounding of my own heart. Footsteps. Slow. Determined. They weren't trying to force their way in. They were waiting. Then, Claire's scream. The sound ripped through me, setting my nerves on fire. My stomach twisted. My hands clenched into fists. I had to do something. There was no way out. No weapon but my own hands. But I wasn't going to let them take my family away. Not without a fight. The bathroom seemed impossibly small, the walls closing in on us. The only way out was the window, but we were on the second floor. Too high to risk jumping with Emily. Another knock against the door. Then, silence. Emily clung to me tighter. "Dad, I'm scared." "I know, honey. I know." The doorknob twisted slightly. "Testing." Then, a voice. Deep. Cold. From outside the door. "Mark." My body turned to ice. They knew my name. I had no choice. I had to fight. I forced myself to take a breath, to push past the fear clouding my mind. I couldn't stay there. I had to get to Claire, to end this before it was too late. I held Emily tight, her small arms tightening around my neck. "Close your eyes, baby. Hold me." Then I opened the door. The moment it opened, a figure lunged in, and everything went black. The next thing I knew, I woke up with a splitting headache and police car lights flashing outside my house. My family was safe, but the officers had the most chilling news of all. The intruders had escaped. And maybe this was just the beginning of a nightmare.
Subscribe to our channel for more scary stories. We would love to read your comments. Which story